Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, friends, and anybody listening in on a regular basis, and even if it's the first time. Today's podcast got a lovely character, a gentleman I've known for a number of years, always fun to be around, and his name is Roland Weil, and he's the VP Sales Cargo for Frankfurt Airport, and a little bit later on we'll elaborate on the Fraport holding. But at this moment in time, another Mr. Cargo. So Roland, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
An absolute. Oh, look at that backdrop, eh? Hey, there's a bold statement.
Well, yeah, we are leading and preferred, and sometimes the largest, but definitely the best.
Hey, leading, largest, preferred, but definitely the best. That's a good logo. Now, listen, you're looking well, mate. You look really good. The lockdown's obviously done you well. You look like you've lost a bit of weight. You got a bit of food.
Yeah, no conferences, no beer drinking, no dining with clients. No, it's just kidding. No, but we've been out there, and the weather is nice. No golf though, but a lot of outdoor activities on the apron.
A lot, I'm sure. All right, my friend. Well, listen, we'll come to that. One of the things that I'm pretty conscious of now is, everything's been terrible. And terrible for our industry, but terrible for all industries and for people in general. Somebody somewhere has been affected. So obviously a lot of respect and sympathies there. And now with so many elements of generations to come now being affected with potential layoffs, redundancies, furloughs, whatever you want to call it, it's putting another dimension and another set of pressures on the industry. So what we're trying to do now is, instead of talking about the new normal, which is, it was a new phrase, but it's now well worn and well overused, what we're trying to focus now on is planned positives, okay? Because everybody's having to plan for a reboot and things happening again. So we're trying to keep it upbeat now and talk about planned positives. So as far as Frankfurt is concerned, do you want to just give us a little bit of a window or a glimpse into what's been happening over the last few months and where you stand at the moment, and especially as you are today's cargo man, okay, Captain Cargo. I'm sure there'll be a lot of emphasis on how cargo is coming back online again.
Yeah, well, cargo was back online right after the pandemic started. So when the passenger flights dropped, and when the passenger numbers and the flight numbers were reduced, and we lost about 97% of our frequencies on the passenger side. Of course, the belly space was gone, and to a big degree still is gone. But the cargo side was still moving and is still moving, and we're only down like about 10 to 15% on the cargo tonnage.
Yeah, which is incredible, isn't it? And it just goes to show. It just goes to show how how much the whole world relies on the supply chain, and how cargo was hardly ever mentioned, or it was mentioned negatively, and now it's such an important and key element of everybody's day-to-day life.
Absolutely, a lot of the cargo we see, of course, is related to the pandemic. And we see a lot of cargo flow coming out of Asia, out of China, but also to and from the United States, with Chicago being volume-wise, to my surprise, actually the strongest O&D we have on the North Atlantic right now. To China, it's of course Beijing, it's Shanghai. It's Guangzhou, it's Shenzhen, it's Hong Kong, and then it's Korea, Incheon. So it's about everywhere. Ningbo, you name it. There's large numbers going, and the cargo is flowing. And we to my surprise, well, yeah, it's such a surprise almost. The numbers are still that high, and we saw carriers, or we see carriers that have never been here before, that are now all of a sudden operating in and out of Frankfurt. Such as we have our good old friend Peter Scholten is one of them with Aerotrans Cargo. We see a lot of Russian carriers coming in. Nordwind, we have iFly, we have passenger carriers out of China, like Hainan Airlines, like Junyao Airlines, numerous really Aerofly passenger carriers that are using their belly space, and with their cargo rates being at a level where they were the last couple of weeks and months, it's attractive for them to operate. So the demand is there. The supply chain asks for capacity, and what we did, we shifted a lot of our resources on the handling side from the passenger to the cargo area, and we are rocking.
You certainly are, huh?
Yes. And as you said, it's the reason why we are in this situation is an extremely sad one, and we're not. I'm not here to downplay that, but as you say, supply chain is up and running.
Yeah.
And not only on medical supplies, but also on general pharmaceuticals, on perishables, on day-to-day cargo.
Exactly. Now, what I'd like to do now is obviously we're talking there about cargo activity. As far as Frankfurt Airport is concerned, and my involvement, and I spent a lot of time there, and especially in my Lufthansa days, everything's very well organised, very well structured. So I would imagine the duty of care from the airport to its population of workers is also very organised and structured. How are you coping with the social distancing and the PPE, masks, etc.?
Well, of course, we have strict rules and regulations we are adhering to, and you must wear a mask once you're inside the terminal as a passenger or as a staff member. So there's no way around it. It's not like an option, but it's mandatory for us. Yeah. And for our guests, and now with the passengers coming back on, the European carriers are increasing the frequencies, or they're coming back on the city pairs, and then we will see if the passenger volume grows. Then of course frequencies will go up. But the destinations are coming back. The airlines are back, so it's not dead silence in the terminals anymore. It's kind of you feel it like on a sailboat when you hear the wind coming, and everybody's ready for things to come.
Yeah, good. And can I ask you, all the carriers that are coming in now, and obviously departures and arrivals, but on departures, are all those carriers also insisting that all passengers wear masks?
That I don't know, but from what I hear, the majority is, yes, at least while they are in the boarding process, and to my knowledge, the majority also while they're in the seats. Yes, okay. But I have not checked that one. No, I'm not familiar with.
Okay, good. But because one of the things that we're discussing with as many people as possible is that this now gives a chance for people to share best practices, to do the right things, or to do things that make sense, which will then give consumers the confidence that's necessary for them to start flying. Now, I mentioned earlier when I introduced you that, albeit you're looking after the cargo side of things now at Frankfurt Airport, as part of the Fraport holding, you've got an awful lot of additional airports, some just recently acquired, some recently agreed, but in total, you've got approximately 24 other international airports?
Yes, that's the number we are operating right now. And of course, when you mention sharing best practices, that's what we do. So we're trying, whatever works here, we try to implement it in other airports. Although we don't want to impose anything that we do here on airports in other countries. So we always have to see whether it works or not. But we don't have to reinvent the wheel. And so those managers that operate these airports, they are in a constant dialogue, and to see what we can do here. Does it work there? Where can we help?
And so have you formed a consistency and collaboration group, or or platform?
No, but this we have that group always. So these airport managers constantly talk, and so there's meetings and all those, and of course you can always pick up the phone and then say, hey, how do you do this and that? And some of countries see it more strict, some see it more relaxed. So, but of course, experience from one is always good for the other. That goes for the entire industry. It goes for everybody in the world, I think.
Exactly. And areas whereby, you know, some of the trade lanes are starting to open up now and agreements between countries. How are you doing in Germany?
On the trade, well, the factories are reopening, but that is the big question mark now. How soon and at what pace will the industry pick up? What is the automotive? There was a huge economic support package that was tailored by the German government to support the economy, to jumpstart the economy again. Whether this is a temporary reduction in VAT, or whether this is easing off some trade barriers, things like that, and for automotive, if you buy an electric car, you're getting additional support, or you're getting support from the government, things like that. So, but now this, of course, with the capacity coming back and with the airline again operating long haul, we see the belly capacity coming back again. So that is it's both. Once it's the economy side, the other one is VFR traffic, is the business traveler going. Europe is coming back slowly, but the big question mark is international air travel.
Yeah. And especially to areas that were so popular previously, but now are facing, you know, their own epidemic, their own outbreak concerns. So, you know, yes, South America.
But long haul carriers are going back into the Gulf carriers are operating passenger flights again. The United States Airlines are operating passenger flights again. So everybody's testing the water to see how the reaction is.
Yeah, no, exactly. And now coming back to cargo, with your Terminal 3 extension and the fact that you're actually putting some additional cargo stands, I mean, that's great news.
Yeah. With the construction of Terminal 3 is ongoing, and it's too big of a construction to stop it. So it would be more costly to stop the works there. So it's going on a little bit of slower pace, maybe, but it continues to grow, and you see the building come off the ground. Some areas we're at third level above. And of course, with that terminal goes more than 10 additional cargo stands for Frankfurt Airport, dedicated cargo stands. So we are seeing the need for additional parking bays, handling bays for cargo aircraft.
Which is always good to hear, eh?
Yeah, it is. It's like our friend Stan Wraight always saying that airports are not doing enough for cargo. I cannot subscribe to that, although he's right.
We'll have to elaborate a little bit of that. So anybody who's listening, who's been to a conference where yourself and Stan have appeared, there's normally like a little bit of friendly exchange. So it's a little bit like the old Muhammad Ali, Joe Frazier days.
They're right.
And you call him, his name is Stan Wraight, but you call him Stan Wright. And I'm sure if we were to ask him, he'd call you Roland wrong.
Absolutely.
So those particular banter, but it's all in good. It's in good fun, and it's but it's a good point you're making.
Yeah, it's true. It's the of course for us, cargo is an important part of our business, and it's like we are moving probably between 3 and 4 million tons of cargo through the airport in a good year. The majority of that flown, but it's also a lot is trucked, because what we are doing here, we are, how should I say, we are a hub, and whether the cargo flows globally, plane to plane, or plane to road, or road to road, or road to train.
Yeah,
this is so that our aim is to connect the global supply chain flow in Frankfurt here. And if the demand is there for air freight, and we see that being the case right now, then we need to satisfy that demand.
Yeah, which is good. Now, with regards to recently, shall we say, reduced restrictions, like, so you've got open skies for freighters, and the understanding that, you know, it's not like a passenger plane that goes one way and comes back again with the same passenger load. You might have to change the routing. So the open skies has been important. But also
Yes.
in Frankfurt, things like night restrictions and things like that. Do you see there being a different approach as we move forward with things like that, which were previous restrictions on the supply chain and flow?
Well, the night restriction, it is kind of, we gave up the core night for runway number 4.
Yeah.
In 2011. So the demand, it's a certain operations that we had at night. There was, of course, you have Lufthansa which is the home base in Frankfurt, and you have the carriers that need to be linked to the maintenance facilities here. But on the other hand, the carriers that operated at night was a Qantas, which doesn't operate right now. We had carriers that moved from the night to the early morning or the late evening. But currently, if the cargo is related to the actual health situation in the world and the flow of protective equipment and vaccinations, that will be the next, because vaccination will be the next, I would say, peak in international cargo. But we are seeing a big cooperation with the authorities. So we are having, I cannot say we're having a relaxed night, but if need be and there is some urgent need, we'll get the approval to operate at night.
Yeah,
or the airlines get that approval. But it's still, the night restriction is still there, of course.
Yeah, but the point you made about things are being a lot more considerate or flexible, or just understanding, and things are happening a lot faster. I mean, I hope that that's one of the planned positives, that people will continue to do that, and they'll appreciate and they'll understand that things can be done a lot quicker. And let's furlough a lot of the bureaucrats and administrators and restrictors, and let the enablers take the business to where it should be in the future.
Yeah, but you see for cargo, a passenger plane, I would say, I don't want to say is more on time than a cargo plane.
Well, it depends how well you handle it, Roland.
In some cases, it's easier to get out a passenger aircraft on time than to get out a cargo aircraft. In many cases, but I think there's also, that's what we are trying to I don't want to say train or educate the cargo carriers to be more on time, and I think then life will be easier for everybody.
Yeah, and what do you attribute that so we say the delay or the disruption with regard to scheduled on-time performance?
Well, looking back at in my previous life when I was an airliner, there was some you were holding an aircraft with 300 passengers sitting there for 3 connecting passengers, and at the same so to accommodate those, and then you probably remember that, you say, well, we are waiting for 5 more to come, but at the same time you're putting the 300-400 on the plane in a bad situation because they're going to be arriving late at their destination. So that is something. And on the cargo side, you had that in the past, that you were waiting for that truck because it was an urgent cargo that needed to go on there. But at the same point in time, all the other cargo on that plane got delayed. And you had the handlers on the other side waiting. You had the clients waiting. I think the mindset is changing within the cargo carriers.
And it has to change. And also people have got to appreciate on the cargo side as well, just like on the passenger side. I remember days gone by when you get to the desk and you're running a little bit late, and you try and convince the check-in agent to let you have a run for the flight.
Right.
And if you had the right smile or the right wink or the right person, they'd sometimes say, "Okay, give it a go." Now you can't do it because they've put a nice block in there, which as soon as your boarding pass scanned, you can't do it because you haven't got enough time. That's something that needs to be a little bit more rigid in cargo, I think.
But it's easily said, of course. You have the process as such is slower on the cargo side, of course.
Yeah, but it just needs everybody to be a lot more organised and have the right information, the right, the right performance, and also the right commitment. And it can be done.
Yeah.
But people tend to bend over backwards too much and be too flexible when it's sometimes not necessary. And the same people that are organising the cargo delivery are the same people that check in for passenger flights, and they're very seldom late for those flights, like we know.
Yeah,
now,
that's true.
With that in mind, and also with procedures, one of the things that we always talk about is how advanced or how capable is the cargo operator, the handler, the airline, anything to do with cargo. How well is it all interlinked with regards to IT programs, platforms, solutions? It always seems as if IT solutions and cargo, as you've said, and I don't want to steal your thunder, that they're natural enemies.
Yeah. Sometimes I think that this is the case. So the cargo is still a manual process in many cases. There's in that chain. There's many individual pieces in there. Whether this is the shipper, then you got the trucker, then you got the forwarder, then you got another trucker, then you got the cargo handler, then you got the ramp handler, then you got the airline, and then you have the same on the other side as well. So all those need to work together, and not all of them are. I don't want to say are interested in fast solutions. Everybody has their own agenda, and everybody wants to have their own profitability high. And some of them, when you're looking at on that chain, you're looking the shipper. He has a freight forwarder, and the freight forwarder delivers to the warehouse. And at the same time, you have the airline, which a ramp handler delivers to the warehouse. But those two are not talking in many cases. So they are optimizing themselves on behalf of the other. Yeah. So this is and this is what we are trying to do, and trying to put that together, that link. So at that point they are talking and they're interacting. When it comes to booking system of ramp slots at the cargo handlers, and we've seen that now with the face masks, because huge numbers were imported but have not been picked up. So companies spent a lot of money on expensive air cargo to get certain goods into Europe, but then they are not picking up their goods, and they let it sit idle in the warehouses and things like that.
Yeah, which is a problem in general, and that's also one of the problems with cargo. Is a lot of organisations they still use the terminals as storage locations instead of a throughput, and the speed element gets questioned. But I agree with you.
Sorry, one thing to add. We've invested a lot of activity and money and resources in automation and in IT solution, and everybody wants smooth processes from A to B, and especially when it comes to the airport. But when you're looking at what IATA always says, you're talking those 3, 4, sometimes 5 days of the average air cargo flow from production to consumption, and you want to cut half a day out of that chain. We're spending a lot of money in IT and in getting that as smooth as possible. But then all of a sudden, if the price is lower on a certain routing, people forget about all that. All of a sudden, time is not the issue anymore, and it's just price.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, it's like 2 days trucking, piece of cake. It's easy. So there's no consistency there.
Exactly. And again, another planned positive is hopefully, or I'm hoping anyhow, is that all of the IT providers will really, really focus on a plug and play and complementing each other, so that they grow the cake instead of fighting over the pieces of the cake. But the same thing with carriers and handlers, shippers. Everybody's got to have a different approach now. And I've never, ever mentioned one man's name so much as probably the last few weeks, and you even mentioned his name to me, David Ambridge. Yeah. Always banging about paperless. And maybe this hygiene issue now, and if you actually look at the amount of time that airway bills and associated documents are actually handed from one person to another, or picked up by one person, or dropped off by one person, it's a huge amount of times. And from a hygiene perspective, it doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't make sense. And then you have some areas, and I think we are making a lot of progress on the e-airway bill. It's going in the right direction. But there's some cases when you need to print the electronic in order to get a stamp on it, and then you scan it again.
Yeah,
this is a joke.
Yeah.
It's still there in certain areas.
Yeah, but these planned positives, if you introduce some logic and common sense from the world customs organizations to airports to handlers to carriers, and insist that the shipper and the forwarder, they utilize blockchain or whatever data protection they need to make sure that things can be done without all this paper. They've got to start to do that. Otherwise, it's going to take far too long.
Absolutely.
And maybe, hopefully, the catalyst for this long-awaited change is the fact that automation, digitalization can actually be enhanced now because of the hygiene issue. If you look at what all retailers are doing now, it's phenomenal what some of these people are doing to get their businesses back up and running.
Absolutely. And then combined with the customer's desire that he actually wants to know where his shipment is at any given time. And that's a big advantage that the big integrators have, because you go online and you do the same when as one of our friends always says, when his daughter is waiting for a new iPhone, she always wants to know, where is it?
Yeah.
And then you go online in the app and you say, here, expected delivery there. We see that coming up, and I see that coming up in the general cargo as well. Companies want to know, and you see carriers, like for example, Air Canada in Frankfurt doing RFIDs, and they can tell you where it is in the warehouse. Is it on a truck? Is it in the warehouse? Is it on the apron? Is it in the plane? Yep. Things like that. So I think that's going there. So this is IT way to go.
So maybe in the future we'll be able to coin a new phrase. So we'll have hygienic track trace transparency.
Yeah, and looking at what I said earlier, when you're looking at the next big wave of air freight coming up with the vaccination, that is temperature controlled. That is temperatures, and they have temperature loggers in there. You know everything. You must know everything there, and then it will not go by an airport that cannot provide that.
Yeah.
If it goes into the black hole, then they will avoid the airport. Those companies shipping.
No, exactly, and that's why the new care handling procedures are going to be so important, and people need to get on board that as quickly as possible. But not just because of that one ultimate goal. They should be doing that as normal practice, and then it brings the whole cargo systems and the whole cargo organization, the whole cargo structure. It just brings it up.
Most likely,
and it makes it a lot more professional.
Absolutely, yes, that's true. That's true.
And I'm sure if every single person over the age of 50 who's a manager responsible for certain parts of the cargo business, if they were to bring their son, their daughter, or their grandchildren in and say, come in for a day and I'll show you what we do, and they went through the whole process, a day in the life of a piece of cargo, I'm sure even the youngest of children would say, why have you got so much paper? Why you keep doing the same thing twice or three times? To them, it's natural, and to us, it should be natural again moving forward. So hopefully, this this hygienic issue and all of the codes of conduct are going to start to change, and the way the retail organisation and the entertainment and hospitality, the way they're having to change now so drastically.
Oh, yes.
Then for us, just to get rid of some paper shouldn't be a major challenge.
No, but look at the passenger side. It took 7 years to get electronic tickets up and running. This was a long process, and you mentioned David. He's working on that since I can remember.
Yeah,
probably when he was already in a stroller, he was looking at e-freight. So no, but it has to go. It has to go like that. There is no way around it. And you're right that most likely it's going to speed up the process.
Yeah, no. Well, let's hope so. Huh? Now, as far as positive or planned positives, what do you see, or what other activities have you got happening at Frankfurt Airport? And I know that you're also looking to expand on the cargo side in one of your airports, Lima. So it's good to see that you as a group or the holding are actually spending money and looking at investing in cargo in the future.
Yeah. It's always as a passenger airport, of course. If you're looking at revenues generated by a passenger, whether this is parking or food and beverages, or whether this is check-in, or whether this is everything that goes on the passenger side, the amount is of course higher. Yep. If you're looking at cargo, for us as an airport as such, the landing, this is where we earn money on the landing. But at the same point in time, we want to be the facilitator of the supply chain going. So this is where we want to make sure that we have the capacity to get the cargo flowing through the airport. And again, the airports, all of them, because when we are taking over operating airports in other countries, whether this is in China, or whether this is in Russia, or whether it's in Turkey, or whether it's in Greece, or in Brazil, or in Peru, as you mentioned, or in Frankfurt, this is part of our business, is the logistics sector. And when you're talking to the airlines, of course, in many markets, the cargo revenue on the passenger plane is the maker or breaker of a passenger city pair. So if there was no cargo, the airplanes would be smaller. Yeah. If there was no cargo, maybe certain city pairs would not operate at all. So this is all you have to take into consideration. If there's no cargo in Frankfurt, smaller airplanes, and of course, bigger airplanes bring more passengers, bigger airplanes bring more revenue on the passenger side. So it goes hand in hand.
So yeah, it does. And with that in mind, if airports realize that and put more focus on it, and obviously you guys clearly are, you'd be able to facilitate the whole airport as a marketing unit to influence carriers to come in, maybe because of that extra cargo revenue that you were talking about earlier. Yeah. So you've got the chance, surely now, looking forward for some of these planned positives, to create your own sort of tenant code of practice as being a representative of Frankfurt Airport to generate more business by getting them to do certain things and by you doing certain things. So, easier access, easier parking, or, for collection purposes, better facilities, various things that you can do to encourage an airline coming to Frankfurt instead of any other European airport, and likewise they can do the same. So a nice bit of healthy competition to make things faster, more comfortable, more reliable.
Yeah, and we will see what the market situation brings now, because if the business is strong and passengers are going in large numbers, it becomes more attractive to operate long and thin, decentralized routes. Now, with passenger numbers being down and maybe frequencies being down, I expect that the carriers will go back into the big hubs, and that we've seen that during Gulf Wars, we've seen that during SARS, we've seen that during during financial crisis, at least initially, and then from there, once those markets are strong again, then it will go on until the long thinner routes. We'll see. We'll see what it happens. The crystal ball, I don't have it. If I had it, I would be working with Stan as a consultant.
Yeah, I think even, it doesn't matter where you are or which consultant, there's very little forward thinking now based on anything from the past, because it's so different.
But it goes, as you say, it goes hand in hand. The cargo revenue complements the passenger revenue, and this is what we also see. And we have many cases where cargo is that little
differentiator
notch that makes the flight come, and also go. If the cargo is dropping, then certain passenger flights are being downgraded equipment-wise, and certain routes are being discontinued. We've seen that. And okay, it's the concept as a multimodal hub, being road, air, train, waterways. In many cases, that works together. That works together.
100%. Now you mentioned earlier as well, and even with the sensitive issue of PPE, whereby everybody's desperate for it. There's a lot of publicity in the press, etc. And then when it does land, to have it sitting there in a warehouse doesn't make sense.
No.
And the same goes for an awful lot of cargo.
Yes.
So why, or do you think there's the opportunity for airports and their tenants, their partners, to come up with a fair booking practice, or to come up with some sort of guidelines whereby, either the charges are a lot more steeper if it stays over a certain period of time, etc., but to encourage the utilization and for the environment of the airport and its surrounding perimeter or its surrounding opportunities for growth to be better and more efficiently handled.
Yeah, we saw a handler do that, and if cargo has not been picked up, there's a charge for storage then, but some of the handlers moved it to remote warehouses. Not as to the degree as it is done in some airports in China. So if it's not picked up within 48 hours, it's trucked to somewhere in the boonies in the middle of nowhere, and then you have to make sure that you get it back from there. But it's really, the cost goes up. The cost goes up the longer it sits.
Yep.
But this is not new to that situation, because we have that on a regular weekend. Some companies book flights on Mondays and Tuesdays, but the trucking is not working over the weekend, so they drop it on Thursdays and Friday, and then it sits idle, but nobody wants to pay for that. And then if you're a handler and you're starting to charge for that, everybody's up in arms and say, you cannot do this. This is counterproductive. So it's not new.
No,
but it's new. It's new on the import side.
Yeah, it's definitely not new, but it's something that was tolerated.
Yes.
And moderated by certain parties because there was a reluctance or a fear to do anything against it. But you imagine
maybe
huh?
Lose customers, as you said, bend over backwards
exactly.
In order to satisfy the customer.
Exactly, but I think there has to be a greater degree of reality now as to what everybody does in all walks of life. Looking out and taking care of the environment. People are now working from home more. People are trusting people working from home, so there's less travel to the airport, so there's less commute time. There's better family life and quality of life, and having priorities and appreciating people. All the things that are the nice things that have come from this terrible situation. But the same, all of that legacy waste that was causing problems. This is an ideal catalyst or opportunity to change and transform the way people expect things and the way people respect things.
True, but I was watching the news yesterday night. Paris. Now everything is open again. Pollution levels are where they were before, and the traffic volume is almost where it was before. So immediately it jump starts again, and everybody seems to have forgotten.
It jump starts. You're right, and then you've got different factors that come in, whereby people who used to enjoy public transport are now more fearful of it. or public transport has to be restricted because of the social distancing, which then puts pressure on other vehicles, etc. So but there has to be a balance, and over time now people shouldn't, I feel, forget the positives that have come, or the opportunities to be more positive out of this terrible thing. Otherwise, all of the tough lessons and God bless everybody that's lost lives, it would have been even worse if we don't learn and do things differently.
Absolutely. I think hadn't we done the lockdowns in numerous cities and countries, numbers would have been dramatically higher.
Yeah, and probably every single political party and government body would say that tough decision of turning the lights out could have been done maybe a bit earlier, but it's because of the same pressures that we're under now to open up. So if lessons don't get learned, then it's a terrible thing.
Yeah, but what I see on the cargo side, although the situation is bad and the economy is down, we are seeing airlines that are optimistic, that are introducing new services, that are bringing back old services. Like Sri Lankan, they have not been in Frankfurt for almost 4.5 years. They are back. Yeah. We see carriers like in ANA, they used to go belly cargo only. Now last week they started dedicated freighter services into Frankfurt. So there is, I think it's like on a you hear it kind of, I'm missing the English word here, but you see like it's the wooden construction is making some noise. So I think the pressure is on, and it's like almost the plane is going up. Yeah. At the end of the runway.
Yeah, totally agree.
So I'm really optimistic, and I think it will be more. But yes, the big question mark is how soon will it be back, and how automated will it be in the future?
Yeah. No, we have to do as much as we can. With
automation is really the key.
Yeah.
The key to and
efficiencies and continuity are so important. Now, just before we finish, and it's always a pleasure talking to you, and I've got fond memories of my Lufthansa times in Frankfurt. And I wish you well with everything that you're doing. It's good that the construction is continuing. Is there anything that you think now you would love to see continue as a planned positive above all else?
On the airport operational side, or
any side, the airport operational side.
I think we for those who have their concerns or had their concerns on the value of cargo for an airport, I think they should really reduce the noise level and look at what's happening. And the global supply chains are running, and I would like to push that even further, and especially with wide body capacity on the passenger side. Look at retirement of A380s, retirement of 747s, retirement of even 777s in big numbers. There's opportunities there. We got conversions coming up of 777 aircraft. So there's wide body. So I see a shift back from belly capacity into main deck in freighter capacity, and that is something where I hope that everybody is appreciating that and is supporting that on a global basis.
Very good. So let's hope it's not Roland wrong, that it's Roland right in the future.
I know it's Roland right.
Yeah. Good.
Maybe then it's Stan wrong. Then no, but Stan is voicing the same.
Yeah.
So I think this is the way to go, and I think, although, as I said earlier, it's a sad reason why it's happening like this, but I don't think we are going to be able to move that wheel backwards. And it's a long process until the passenger numbers are back up.
Yeah.
And we're going to be ahead of tough years for everybody in the world.
Yeah, no, it's going to be very tough, and I think we have to be mindful of so many people who've done absolutely nothing wrong, who are going to be affected as a result of it, and
yes.
And as organisations, as units, as airports, etc., we've got to try and do as much for people to keep them associated, so that when things do pick up, you bring back the experienced people and those that have had, training and been invested in, so that they don't feel that they've got no options. But it's going to be.
But staff numbers are most likely to go down. You hear it from everybody in the world.
Yeah.
Business will be different, and us as an airport, if passenger numbers are not there, we have to think what we do.
Yeah, it's just that I think this right sizing program, it has to be done, and it's going to be done. I just think if there's a possibility to keep associated with people, like I say, who've been displaced for no reason of their own, even that little bit of ongoing communication or association. So when things do pick up, whether it's 2 years, 3 years, whatever the time period is, they always feel as if they're welcomed back, and they should be the first to be encouraged to come back.
Yes, and with their qualification levels, they will be, I think. And the question is, will they be willing to again work in that environment, or do they say, "Oh, I've been disappointed by that industry. I don't want to work. I want to be whatever XYZ job." Somewhere.
Oh yeah, no, there's always that, and I think every other industry that would take people from our industry would be pleasantly pleased at the level of professionalism and the understanding of regulatory compliance and procedures, etc. So good luck to everybody.
Yes, and cargo is a sexy industry, and I think people will stay, and people will want to stay in the cargo area.
They will indeed, especially for those who know you and see how good you look now. You've got to let me know off screen what cream it is, or whether it's a cosmetic surgeon or whatever. But whatever it is, you're looking well, my friend.
Thank you. Same to you.
Right, and thanks very much for joining us. It's a great pleasure as always. And keep doing the good work in Frankfurt.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. Bye, Chris.
Cheers.